Right here? No, I have not.
Thank you.
Keyboard has still have a problem. So keyboard verification. Those are the choices.
Oh, you did?
I don't have a choice but asking for assistance. That's not one of the options.
I wonder if it's even better to turn this right here. So
Turn
you're
the
the,
log on.
What's this going to do with that?
If you could just provide a waiver that way.
maybe you can try to send it.
I'm on the laptop.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, I meant you're gonna leave that. Push it. You're gonna push it.
I think this is.
Oh. It's too loud.
Okay, there is some questions about that.
We gotta.
That's good.
That want to set our cameras on me real quick?
And Ben's taller than me, so this is not a problem. Everything good? No, I'm not. I'm just trying to help you guys center the cameras if you need.
Are they going to be people to the left and to the right?
There will, yeah. So it'll probably end up being like up to about here on the either side. Is I anticipate being the case. Do you think that's enough of moving it out of frame? Good? Okay, excellent. You guys need anything?
Oh, you did? Okay. You said you replied at all?
We got to pray.
And back here. Shit, coach. Reverend Johnson.
Ready?
Yes, sir. We're ready.
Okay.
Everyone ready?
It is our great delight to welcome into the sacred precincts of the Mount Zion Second Baptist Church here in the 4th Ward section of Atlanta, a church that on yesterday celebrated 154 years of lifting and loving those for whom Jesus had an abiding concern, the least of these, those who have been historically denied, those who have been downtrodden, those who have been dispossessed, not just down and out, but even those who have made it to Strivers Row, but have a desire to keep climbing up. We want all who are committed to such an endeavor to know that we are making common cause with you. Amen. That's why when the request came to Mount Zion from Attorney Crump and all who assist him, that we willingly said yes to you, because we know that you're looking out for those for whom we are indeed concerned. Amen. That being the case, let us all bow together and thank God for this effort. O Lord of light and love, we thank you this day that still compassionate hearts are walking the streets of not just Atlanta, but every hovel of despair and every city on a shining hill. But there's always somebody somewhere that is left out, locked out, who is regarded the least and the last, the unlucky and the unloved. We've come to ask your blessing as we strive to help them be all that they can be. We pray that you'll bless this endeavor. We pray, O Heavenly Father, that all that is done will be pleasing in your sight. Bless these families that have been adversely impacted. Let them know that with you, all things are possible. For indeed, we lift up this prayer on the wings of the morning, as all of God's children say, amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much, Reverend Johnson, for allowing us to come to this historic cathedral. We are very grateful, and it's fitting that we're here at this institution with its lineage for standing for civil rights for all. I am Attorney Ben Crump, and along with Attorney Nabiha Shear from the Ben Crump Law Firm, we are honored to be working with some of the best discrimination civil rights lawyers in America, and that is Attorney Suzanne Bish and Attorney Linda Freeman of Stowell Freeman Law Firm based out of Chicago, Illinois. And I'm equally honored to have join us Attorney LaShonda Counsel, who hails right here from Atlanta, Georgia. And we have one of my colleagues who works with my office, Dr. Denise Mincham, present here. And we're standing with some of our clients who have faced the ugly brunt of discrimination. We have Mr. Christopher Williams here from Atlanta, Georgia. We have Miss Shanta Fanning from Nashville, Tennessee. We have Mr. Henry Umana from West Hartford, Connecticut. And we have Shea Simmons from Tallahassee, Florida, and her husband is present with us, Coach Simmons, who is the coach of the great Florida A&M University Rattler football team. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. And it really underscores that Wells Fargo discrimination was indiscriminate.
Yes.
In discriminating. Seems like the only common denominator was the color of the applicant's skin, Suzanne. And so, I tell you, Wells Fargo is one of the biggest banks in the country. It is believed that they're the largest homeowner lender in America. Their corporate practices determine the financial health and opportunities and lack of for millions of Black Americans. Wells Fargo says its mission is helping customers succeed financially, but Attorney Scheer, they are not helping Black Americans succeed financially when they engage in a pattern and practice of corporate behavior that denies financial opportunities to Black customers and charges them more for the same services that they charge white customers for. Wells Fargo says it's committed to improving communities, but they have held back Black communities by denying loans and charging higher interest rates to customers just because the color of their skin. You know, oftentimes I fight against police brutality, which, like with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, leads to Black Americans being killed unjustly. Well, with the discriminatory practices of Wells Fargo Bank, it leads to the unjust killing of Black Americans' opportunity. Yes. It leads to the killing of Black people's spirit when you deny them opportunities to try to gain ground on the wealth gap, to build Reverend Johnson generational wealth. Yes. When I listened to Ms. Shea Simmons talk about what her grandmother taught her and what home ownership means and what you try to leave your children, and to have Wells Fargo deny hardworking African Americans who did everything right, like Chris Williams, dotted every I, crossed every T, paid their bill every month on time, but yet Wells Fargo continued to move the goalposts to engage Attorney Edmonds in a unwritten poll tax on Black people. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're fighting. You have to understand, because of this global pandemic, the government tried to encourage people's ability to weather the storm. And so they created historic opportunities. I mean, as I understand it, Attorney Brisk, they had interest rates that was as low as they've ever been in the past 50 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And so while this gave Americans an opportunity to refinance and be able to accumulate greater equity in their home, thus accumulating greater wealth, because of Wells Fargo discriminatory practices, what they end up doing, instead of African Americans being able to close the wealth gap, it created a greater deficit. And that's why we applaud Mayor Eric Adams of the city of New York and his unprecedented stance to say the city of New York will do no new accounts with Wells Fargo until they adequately address these inequities. And we're talking to other mayors across the country to join Mayor Adams in standing against discrimination. Do not invest your pension funds in an institution that has a persistent pattern of discrimination. Let's hold them accountable. Let's divest from them until they prove to us that they value black customers, that they respect black neighborhoods, that they believe in allowing access to capital for black people so we can have something, Ms. Fanning, to give our children.
Right, all right.
That's what we're asking mayors across the country to do. That's what we're talking to them about. We're making sure that they know that your African American communities are looking to you and asking, will you stand up for equality, equal access, and opportunity for our community within the city limits that we elected you, Mayor? Because our votes matter, and we're looking to you to exhibit leadership like Mayor Adams. We also today are supporting SEIU, one of the largest unions in America, who are significant shareholders, attorney counsel with Wells Fargo. And tomorrow, this labor union, one of the largest in America, as I said, a major shareholder with Wells Fargo, will call upon shareholders to vote on a motion for a racial equity audit conducted by an independent third party. And that's huge. And we want to say thank you to SEIU Union on behalf of the tens of thousands of janitors, window cleaners, lab techs, nursing home caregivers, bus drivers, child care providers, and other caregivers amongst the 2 million members that you represent. Thank you for forcing this important vote. I call for other Wells Fargo caregivers to vote in favor of this independent study so we all know exactly what Wells Fargo practices have been and how they affect marginalized minorities, not just black people, but also Hispanic people, Native people. We want to know, what's your record? You keep talking about what you're doing, let us see your record. And that's what this independent audit is going to do. So Attorney Freeman and Attorney Bliss and all of our clients in the BHA, we support SEIU motion that is going to be heard tomorrow at their shareholders meeting. And we expect that they're going to do the right thing. And if not, we're going to continue to fight until they do the right thing. I will make just a couple more points, and then we want you to hear from the people who really have had to deal with the mental anguish, the heartbreaking stories of families who are just like you. They work hard, they pay their bills on time, they're responsible, and all they wanted was an opportunity at the American dream. Because we know home ownership is the primary way that low and moderate income families are able to build wealth and achieve financial stability. We know that that dream has been very elusive for Black Americans. In 1960, there was a 27-point gap, Mr. Smith, between Black ownership, which was 38%, and white ownership in America, which was 65%. Today, that gap is even wider. Black home ownership dropped more than 2 percentage points from the year 2000 to 2010 and slid another 5 percentage points after 2010. And it is well known that Black Americans suffered a disproportionate and deadly impact from the COVID pandemic. In 2019, total mortality amongst Black men was 26% higher than white men. In 2020, it was 45% higher. Similarly, for Black women, the excess death disparity more than doubled from 26% in 2019 to 32% in 2020. While the pandemic took a disproportionate toll on Black America, the federal government's response to it created a time-limited opportunity to correct another racial gap, and that was home ownership. And this gets right down to the crux of the matter. Mortgage rates fell to record lows in 2020 and 2021 due to the emergency pandemic reaction by the Federal Reserve. Millions upon millions of people refinanced their homes to take advantage of these historic low interest rates. If Wells Fargo, as one of America's biggest banks, had extended the same opportunities to Black customers as they did to white customers, we could have enjoyed unprecedented progress in closing the home ownership gap amongst Black Americans, building Black wealth and family stability, driving investment in Black neighborhoods, and increasing intergenerational wealth for Black families. Instead, Wells Fargo systematically denied Black American mortgages, charged them higher interest rates, refused to invest in Black neighborhoods, and denied Black Americans the benefits the government intended for all Americans to weather the pandemic. And I will tell you this, my final point I want to make, because I think it's important that you understand how the discrimination was working. It's one thing to hear them saying they're discriminating. It's another thing, Reverend Johnson, to make it plain.
Right.
Since we're in church,
yes,
let's make it plain.
Yes.
Wells Fargo discriminatory practices persist throughout the entire life cycle of their loans, from application to origination to financing and servicing. Application disproportionately denies credit to African American applicants, even though, Mr. Williams, when they have great credit scores and great income to debt ratios. Origination disproportionately charges higher interest rates, impose more fees and costs, and often worse terms to African Americans. Third, refinancing disproportionately denies African Americans the opportunity to lower their interest rates through refinancing. Servicing. Wells Fargo pressures African American borrowers to increase rates by improperly treating African American borrowers' loans in default and instituting improper foreclosures, Ms. Simmons. Ms. Fannin, the City of Philadelphia's statistical analysis revealed that African American borrowers were more than twice as likely to receive a high-cost or high-risk loan than a white borrower, even when controlling the credit score. What does that mean? The discrimination worsened as the credit score increased. Right. Especially credit-worthy African Americans with a FICO scores over 660 who were 2.57 times more likely to receive a high-cost or high-risk loan from Wells Fargo as opposed to a white borrower. This precipitated what many leading commentators described as the greatest loss of wealth for people of color in modern U.S. history. Despite being well qualified to receive refinancing, high-income black applicants had an approval rate about the same as white borrowers in the lowest income bracket. You understand? If black homeowners, applicants had high credit scores, they were rejected at same levels as white borrowers with the lowest credit scores. And this is why Mayor Adams is saying this persistent pattern of discrimination. Wells Fargo denied the refinancing application of one African-American man with a credit score above 800, in part because his home was in a predominantly black neighborhood. And that's what we talk about, investing in black communities, when you're denying us the opportunity to build up our community. Right. It's very real. It doesn't just impact the individuals, it impacts the entire community. It impacts our future, what we can give our children. Attorney Briss is going to get into details of the lawsuit at the end, but right now, it's important that you hear from these real people, our clients, who we vow to fight for to the end, no matter how many games Wells Fargo play. You can try to play the games with us individually and think you can sweep it under the rug, but you can't play the games with all of us, Wells Fargo. All of us united together will not be defeated by discrimination. I give you Mr. Christopher Williams, here from Atlanta, Georgia, to tell his story. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Attorney Crump, for all of the work that you do and the fight that you continue to pursue for justice for people who look like me. My name is Christopher Williams. I am here in Atlanta. I am a husband. I am a father of 3. And like many, I went to Wells Fargo because I wanted to leverage the real estate, the equity that I have in my home, to build my real estate investment company. I have a relationship with Wells Fargo. I've had a relationship for several years on the banking side as well as their brokerage side. I thought I was a shoo-in. I spent about 20 years in the financial services industry, so I know how financing works. I know what the banks are looking for in lenders. I know what pricing they give for preferred borrowers. I was one of those preferred borrowers. So I thought, with one exception. I didn't consider my race. My credit score was just under 800 before I applied. When they told me my credit score, when I applied, they told me it was 100 points less. I asked them, how is that discrepancy? What is the discrepancy in my credit score? They couldn't give me an answer. When they approved my line of credit application, they approved it with a rate of 3 points higher than what they would have other well-qualified borrowers. 3 points. They use a rate of prime plus a margin. That margin was 3 points. When I spoke with the processor, and I asked that processor, tell me, I used to work in the industry. I know that when we had clients that had good loan to value, less than, greater than, or less than 80%, good debt to income ratio, good equity positions in the home, good credit card usage, low ratio, what is balance to limit ratios. I know that I used to do these loans for those well-qualified borrowers at prime plus no margin. Do you no longer offer those? The processor told me, yes, we do. And I said, so then you're telling me that that 100-point discrepancy in my credit score is costing me 3 points in this line? He said, well, yes. Then you have to explain to me what that discrepancy is. They couldn't offer an explanation. They told me there were, I'll put it in quotes, quote, unquote, other factors that went in their scoring process. I let them know that I felt that it was discriminatory lending practices. They launched an investigation, and they came back and told me, no, we did everything right. I was that borrower, well qualified, and I was offered a higher than favorable rate. I then went and got it from another lender, and they did the right thing. That's my story with Wells Fargo. Why did I file this lawsuit? Because of my experience in the industry, and because I pay close attention to my numbers. I know a lot of people would have taken that loan and would have been grateful for it, but they would not have known that they were discriminated against, and they would not have known that they are now paying more than what they should have. And what does that do? Furthers the wealth gap in this country. So I hope that through this class action, Wells Fargo does the right thing, stops the discriminatory practices, and finally addresses the issues that they have. That's my story with Wells Fargo.
Wow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for speaking on a very engaging matter, educating all of us. Hopefully, if there are others out there who have had similar experiences to Mr. Williams, they call us, because you deserve to be rewarded for being responsible, not to be punished just because the color of your skin, which leads us to a young lady who is inexplicable what she had to endure and what she is still enduring to this moment as she fights to keep possession of her home. This systematic racism just can't be explained if you don't go through it. I mean, you can't understand it. But I think Ms. Simmons will help at least have you start asking questions. So we're going to have Ms. Shea Simmons and her husband, Coach Willie Simmons, address you all. Ms. Simmons.
Good morning. I feel like I should say good morning in church because I feel comfortable here in the shelter in the church being. I am Shea Simmons. I am the proud wife of one very supportive husband, and we are the proud parents of 6 children. I am also the granddaughter of slaves. I was raised in the South by a very wise woman who taught me many things. She taught me the value of faith, hard work, education, and home ownership. So today, Reverend, I want you to know that I think about the number of times I've been in a church and I've heard a charge to keep I have, and a God to glorify. God has to get the glory in this situation. Wow. Wells Fargo is attempting to steal our home in an unjust and unfathomable manner. I am here in this place this morning to report an armed robbery. Without a mask or a gun, Wells Fargo is flagrantly intending and threatening our families' future by filing false documents with callous intentions to take our home. They say that their mission is to ensure that all customers succeed financially. I'm here this morning to say that that is not true. I'm from a very distinct group of individuals that can say that Wells Fargo is not interested in my financial success nor our family's future. I stand today representing a class of people and generations of hope who have been subjugated to underhanded business practices that do not better the communities as Wells Fargo insists in their core values, not when they deny, block, and steal. I am here today to report an attempted robbery. I carry with me all the time the lessons of my grandmother. She gave me the lessons that I needed. So my husband and I, through his hard work, through my hard work, through our business dealings, we work to ensure our financial future for our family, to build generational wealth, and one of those avenues is home ownership. Wells Fargo, I did what I was supposed to do.
Amen.
For over a decade, we have paid our mortgage. During the pandemic, we took income losses. As a result, we used the federal government's CARES Act monies to take a forbearance for 12 months. I talked to Wells Fargo quarterly when they ensured that we were still engaging in the forbearance. I spoke to them every 3 months. My husband and I bank with Wells Fargo. We didn't have to send a check that was lost in the mail. We did not have to go by and take cash. No, we take our money and transfer directly from our checking to our mortgage. Yet, on March 21st of this year, and again on March 22nd, 2 process servers came to our home to say, Ms. Simmons, we're so sorry, but we are foreclosed. We're sending notice that Wells Fargo is foreclosing on your home. So they entered into an agreement with us, and now they're backpedaling and saying, well, maybe you should have signed a form. We've not done enough. I am here to report an attempted robbery.
My Lord.
Wells Fargo, I have watched in horror as your banking institution has threatened the security afforded through owning a home. I kept my end of the bargain, and it's still not enough. You're threatening our family's stability, equity, security, and access while simultaneously doing irrefutable, I'm sorry, my nerves, y'all.
No, take your time.
Doing damage to our character, to our reputation, to our business dealings. I've had sleepless nights, and I have cried real tears because of this sickening behavior. But it's resolved my intention to fight like the ancestors, to ensure that this does not happen to another mother and another wife, not to another husband and another son and another father. Our children should sleep peacefully at night in the homes that serve as their sanctuary when their parents are praying and working to ensure their futures. I am here to report an armed robbery, and I have a message for you, Wells Fargo. I want to know how far you will go, because it is not well. I will not go away. I will not be silenced. You are wrong in your predatory practices. You are wrong to deny and threaten and steal away the home ownership of hardworking Americans who have done everything right, potential home buyers and home owners who have met the standard, and yet your financial institution operates in a callous systemic scheme to embezzle, steal, take away the homes of hard-working individuals, and consequently steal those financial dreams and futures of countless people. So my grandmother, who's watching from heaven, Iris Smoke, also taught me to advocate and fight against injustices, particularly for those who cannot speak for themselves. Wells Fargo, you might be a Goliath, but I am a David. I am a David that is representing the people who should not have their homes stolen because of your practices. This is my story. I don't want an apology. I don't want a quick resolution. I am here to report an attempted robbery, and I want to change. Thank you.
Amen. You're right, Ms. Fanning. Thank you so much, Ms. Simmons, for bearing your heart, Coach Simmons. It's real when you think about being kicked out of your house, and there's no good reason other than they're preying on marginalized minorities. Wells Fargo, we believe you're better than this. Show us that you're better than this.
Yes.
This is an opportunity for you to do right by all your customers. If you expect black dollars, then you have to respect black people.
Yes.
And black neighborhoods. Yes. And black investment opportunities, Wells Fargo. Our money is just as good as our white brothers and sisters' money. We want to do business with you only if you want to do business with us in good faith.
Yes.
And we demand such. Reverend Johnson, we demand such. Yes. Wells Fargo. Yes. And Ms. Simmons, again, thank you. Next, you will hear from Ms. Sharita Fanning from Nashville, Tennessee, to tell you her story, her unbelievable story of what she's had to endure with Wells Fargo. Ms. Fanning, we're here with you.
Good morning. I may not be as loud, but hopefully my message is. I'm probably the only one that's going to be very, very emotional, because this is very, very emotional for me and my family. I have been a client of Wells Fargo since July of '97. I did not go to Wells Fargo. They came to me. I took my mortgage out with Century Mortgage because I had been guided. And in the interim, they closed. Wells Fargo bought the account, so therefore they came to me. I have not ever missed a payment, not one. And I have been paying them for over, 2 decades? I have not missed a payment. Even during this fiasco that I'm in right now, I still have not missed a payment, and it has been horrific. All I wanted was a portion, probably 1/4 of what my home started out to be worth. My home has tripled in value, if not more. I just wanted a small portion of what I started to pay. And it wasn't, just frivolously, I want some money. I needed that for the health of me, my family, and my dog. We found out in October that my home had almost been taken over with mold. And yes, that probably was an oversight of the family. The basement floods, it dries up, and you don't think about it. Well, where is this water going? It precipitated to half of my house, half. We could no longer stay there. I found out, and instantly, I had to start making places to stay. I have been homeless with a home, paying for it. While Wells Fargo is giving me the runarounds, I just want 1/4 of what my home started out to be worth. Just 1/4, just a little. I wanted to pay the company that came in and did the remediation. They finished it in January. I started trying to get the money in December after I had been told in November that my case was good, my money was good, my score is great. I was surprised. I was like, that's my credit score? It is great. And with that, not having any bills, I don't have any. I pay mortgage and utilities. And I don't go out to pay those. I don't mail. They take it directly from my account, everything, and it's done. You know, I don't even think about Wells Fargo. I have thought about them more since October than I have the life of my mortgage.
Wow.
I invested in my home for my children. I want them to have something when I leave. They need a legacy. They need wealth. This is what I wanted them to have, a debt-free home. For me to get a portion, a small inkling of what I needed, they are trying to refinance me. They're wanting me to refinance, start all over with a 30-year loan. I am 58 years old. I wanted to see my house paid. I wanted my children to have a debt-free house to move into, and that's not going to happen. Well, I'm not going to discount myself. God will make that happen. He's made everything else happen. He's brought me to this. And I'm speaking to Wells Fargo. I am so glad I am here. Yes, you know, you go through things. People don't realize why. This might not be for me. And I pray this will help others, so therefore it will be for others. Yeah. God is just taking me through this way. And I'm not going to be still. I'm not going to be quiet. And it was so interesting how I became connected with Ben Crump. And I just thank you. I just thank you so much. I can't thank you. I can't thank you enough. And Shay, I can't thank you. I can't thank you all enough. I was up one morning. I'm a preschool teacher. And I was up making a playlist for my kids. I wanted to go in that morning and get them all jarred up. And just so happened I have a Newsweek app on my phone, and it keeps me abreast of everything. I don't really watch the news, so I really rely on it. There was an article of Ben Crump. I said, well, look at God. Look at God. Look at God. Because I'm in the midst right now. They are waiting for the second time on my application. They are waiting right now on me to supply some documentation that they already have.
That's the game.
You know, this is the thing. And so I lose sleep at night. I cry during the day. I go into the job. Some mornings all I can do is cry. All right. I just cry for 30, 40 minutes. My supervisor rubs me. It's okay, it's okay. And it ends up becoming okay at that moment, but this is not okay at all. This is not okay at all. While I was away from my home, while they were working on the mold, I had to live in 3 other households. I was homeless with a home. How is that possible? How can you be homeless with a home?
And Ms. Fanner, tell the press what your home is worth and the small amount you were trying to borrow against your equity to get the roof fixed.
Well, actually, Mr. Mann, the roof came into play after I tried to get the inkling of what I needed to get. Their appraisal came out, and there was patches in the roof that need to be repaired. At the time, the floors were being repaired because the mold had been taken up and they had to be relayed, so I had to get all new floors. So, and I kept asking, when is the appraisal coming? I really didn't want them to come at that time because I knew that was going to cut in and hurt my value, but they did. So when they came and gave me the appraisal, he wanted, at this point, then my application loan was based on getting the roof repaired and getting the floors repaired. I got the roof repaired. I got the floors repaired. They're still wanting, as of last week, a notice, an invoice from the roof repair. It was done in January. So I'm still fighting the battle, and I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting. And then the thing is, it's not just me anymore. I've got MDHA, I've got them helping me because they were there in the beginning when I purchased the home, and they helped me with the clothes. I have them helping me. I have my bank helping me. You know, everybody is trying to help and push this through because I need documents. Documents here, documents there. And they never get them all.
And Ms. Fannin, it is important to note you did do all the right things. Your home appraised out at $245,000. You only owed $25,000 more on your house for it to be paid off. And now they're saying to get this mold and roof fixed, they want you to play the game. You could refinance it and just take out the $25,000.
I don't even want that. I just need $15,000. The remediation company charged me $12,000. I wanted $15,000.
That's it.
That's it. That's all I wanted. And I've been jerked around into, I can't tell you how many hoops I have jumped through since December. They dragged it along so far up until March, they closed the application because they were still waiting on documentation. They were waiting on my roof to be repaired. Wow. While they're waiting on that, the people who have completed the job are waiting. They're still waiting. But they understand. And the thing with the roof and the floor, and I was like, they sent me a letter. The house is not inhabitable, but I'm living there. But it's not inhabitable. So after I got everything repaired, everything is repaired. I still only have mortgage to pay for. God grace, Lord. I only have the repairs to be paid for. I mean, I am debt free. I'm debt free. I need $15,000 to pay a company to charge me $12,000. I'm not even getting much out of it. The $3,000 is so that I can maybe do something around the house. You know, I've been there this long.
And understand, and understand, this would have been an incredible opportunity to refinance with such low interest rates. But now, as we all know, that opportunity is gone. The interest rates are now going back up. So it is so clear how this disadvantage people like Ms. Fannin and others who are just trying to get equity in their home ownership. I mean, they're not trying to do anything that Americans don't do every day. But Wells Fargo continues to engage in these discriminatory practices. And Ms. Fannin, you are not alone.
And I am so glad to be here. I am glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And you and Cher and everybody, y'all get each other's number. I told you it's overwhelming, the mental anguish that people are having to go through because this bank is engaging in these discriminatory practices. The last person present with us today, and Attorney Biss can tell you all so many stories that she and Attorney Freeman have been chronicling in this litigation. Attorney Scheer, I mean, Attorney Scheer gets off the phone with clients and calls me, and just as emotional as the clients are, because it's emotional just thinking about how these people are being screwed. It's that simple. I mean, they are fighting against Goliath, and Goliath keeps moving the pole every time they get close to the goal. Denise, it's like a poll tax. We gonna keep coming up with things while you can never be fully made whole, and we reject that. Now you're gonna hear from Henry from West Hartford, Connecticut. This isn't just a Southern thing, this is an American thing. Wells Fargo is doing this all over America. And so we're gonna address it nationally. And we're gonna continue, whether in Chicago, whether in Louisiana, whether in Florida, Coach Simmons, we're gonna address it. What the old people say, we're gonna meet them where they at. Mr. Henry?
Good afternoon. What a privilege to be here in your midst. I live in West Hartford, Connecticut. I'm an IT analyst with the state of Connecticut, Department of Health. I came to Connecticut by way of Huntsville, Alabama, the home of the Bulldogs, Alabama A&M Bulldogs. And I came to Atlanta, Georgia. When I graduated, started my IT career here in Alpharetta, Georgia, with IBM and GE Capital and EDS, you name it. So for the last 25 to 30 years, I've had a good job in IT as a senior Oracle database administrator and senior database Microsoft SQL Server database administration. So the essence to get the American dream is to get good education, get a good job, and then get the American dream of having a home, right? I did all that. So I moved from Atlanta to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I bought my first home. And, I owned it for 15 years. And while I was in Louisiana, I got a job that I could not refuse with one of the big conglomerate insurance, the Hartford Insurance. So I moved to Hartford. I've always said, I don't want to go where it snows. It's so cold.
Me neither.
But the offer was so good, I had to move. So my wife and I moved. So we lived in Hartford, Connecticut, where we started, renting an apartment. But you see, I have been banking with Wells Fargo since 1992, here in Atlanta, Georgia. I lived there about 10 years. And when the bank was First Union, before they got swallowed up. All right. So when I wanted to buy a new home, a brand new structure in West Hartford, Connecticut, the first place to go is your bank. The bank you have a relationship with, your long-time bank. So I went there, and they took all my documents, they took everything, they requested, you name it, and I gave it. They even made me take an exam they call Wells Fargo Homeowners Framework Test, that if you pass the test, that it reduces your interest rate and gives you more opportunity and ability to get loan from Wells Fargo. So I took it and I passed with flying colors, and I keep waiting, and I keep waiting, and I keep waiting. In fact, the loan processing officer told me from San Francisco, she told me, you have gotten everything that I need, that I asked for. I don't know why the underwriters are not approving your loan, And I keep waiting, and I pushed the closing date from April to May, from May to June. And meanwhile, I was still renting, So, and my wife was so confident that we will get the loan, having been with Wells Fargo. I have a 401k with Wells Fargo Advantage Fund. I financing my Audi Q7 with Wells Fargo Dealer Services, and they take their money from my checking. So I don't really owe them. I pay on time. My credit is good. So after waiting for a while, and I could not get it, and the seller keep pushing, so I have no choice other than to take an alternative loan from a different company that gave me a higher rate called guaranteed rate. So guaranteed rate now financed it for me, and I just closed on the home June 26th, I think. So I forgot all about it. But I'm somebody who's abreast with the news. I'm current with the news. So about a month and a half ago, 2 months, I read, in the news that Wells Fargo rejects about 70-75% of minority loans, contrary to J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America, the other bigger banks. So I said, So I read it. I said, wow, this happened to me, So I called Wells Fargo, still my current bank, even as I speak. I said, I have a complaint to make. I read in the news how your practices were with giving loans, and I was a victim of it. So I narrated my ordeal, and then they transferred me to Wells Fargo executive offices, and they said they will call me. They have since called me like twice or 3 times, and all they have said so far was, we just want to let you know we have not forgotten you. You know, but to summarize it all, the fact that I have a relationship with Wells Fargo for so long, at least to be precise and concise, 28 years.
Wow.
It's not a small thing to have a bank that you use continuously for direct deposit when you have good job, very good jobs, and the fact that they delayed for about 3 months and another company was able to give me a loan within 1 month. The fact that the Wells Fargo processing officer told me, I don't know why the underwriters are not approving your loan, but you have given me everything I need, quote and unquote. And I told Wells Fargo that in my complaint to them. And I was able to differentiate with Wells Fargo that I said, by the way, your customer service is impeccable. Every time I call for my bank transactions, your customer service are awesome. In fact, they are unmatched, but your policy really stinks. And I put it in there. I put it in there in my complaint. I said, tell the executive section that, I have nothing against Wells Fargo, but their policy. And that's really all I have to say here.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. And just briefly, Ms. Simmons, if you come back, she said something to me, and I think it needs to be said because talking about what they tell you.
I was just listening to Henry tell his story about how he called in. When I called about the foreclosure at the end of the call, the representative said to me, thank you, Ms. Simmons, for being a valued customer of Wells Fargo. And the only thing I have to say to that is prove it, Wells Fargo. Prove that I'm a valued customer, as are all these other individuals and all the individuals across the country whom you are stealing and killing the dreams of.
Thank you so much for saying that, Ms. Simmons. I know you didn't want to come back, but that's so important because that's the crux of the matter here. They're saying one thing and they're doing another. You're a valued customer, but we're going to discriminate against you. Do you discriminate against people you value, or you discriminate against people you don't value?
Right.
And your actions speak so loud, Wells Fargo, we need not hear your words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the stories are real, and we have to unfortunately go and be technical and use all these legalese and make the case because them just bearing their hearts isn't enough, because if it was, we wouldn't be here. So that's why we have to file this class action lawsuit. And attorney Suzanne Bish is one of the best class action lawyers in America. Her and her firm have been doing these class actions even when it wasn't popular, saying it's not just about some of us, it's about all of us. And so that's why I'm so proud to work with these sisters. Attorney Suzanne Bish is going to be the last person you hear from, and then we're going to go ahead and answer whatever questions you may have. Attorney Bish.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crump, Ms. Simmons, Ms. Fanning, Mr. Bima, Mr. Williams, who had a cracked tooth but still was here today before he had to run to the dentist because it's just that important to him.
Wow.
I am going to deal with the less exciting or compelling parts of this case, but this case is borne out by the cold, hard facts. We don't know everything because a lot of what Wells Fargo is doing is cloaked. They're not forthcoming about it, as you've heard from these folks. But we do know that there is systematic discrimination in the home lending process. And it's been said before, but buying a home is really the American dream.
Yeah.
It's, and that's not being it's not just a house. It's where we raise our families. It's where we live, where we have joy, where we have sadness, We work really, really hard, and we're told we should, to stop paying rent and burning money and invest in our very own home, where we can build a life and build equity and take that equity out when we need it, when someone's sick, when our house roof falls in, for all the emergencies, or to send a kid to college, or to take that money out and invest and grow the money more, to get, and so on the entire spectrum of the home lending process, we found discrimination in Wells Fargo's systematic practices. And so that's from the origination of who gets a mortgage. Many African Americans, Wells Fargo just says no to, and they don't get the home. Then if you do get the home, it's at a higher interest rate. It's paying higher fees, more costs. It's being denied a refinancing when rates fall. We've had people call in from New York and New Jersey paying 8.5%. Now, I'm old enough that I remember 8.5% interest rates, but it hasn't been a long time. And that gentleman could not get the 2%, 3%, even 4% rates that are here now. Some of these differences are small, but over the years in interest rates and costs and fees, they add up to thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you lose, sometimes Wells Fargo has strung people out for so long that they sold their house, they became homeless, they lost businesses. We spoke with a Wells Fargo borrower in North Carolina who was told to sell her house so she could buy the next house, and then they denied the loan for the next house. She lost her home health care business and lost her home. These are not rare stories. Every one of the folks that have been telling you their story here, there's 20 more who have already reached out to us and called. And those experiences, like I said, are belied by what we found from the cold heart. If you don't, thank you. I didn't mean for you to. It's supposed to be bigger. But because of some of these practices, because for decades and decades, Wells Fargo has discriminated against black borrowers. They've been sued by the Department of Justice, by cities. They've lost cases in court. They've settled hundreds of millions of dollars, but these practices and this discrimination has continued. And so some of this information, not all of it, but some of it is public. An analysis of the public data shows that from beginning to end of the home lending process, there are real statistically significant disparities. And what statistically significant means, it's not chance. It's not an accident. These are like from a statistical perspective, it's like 1 in a quadrillion or something that this could be anything other than racial discrimination. Wow. It's not. So on the front end, Wells Fargo approved 67.1% of white applicants for mortgages, but only 51.8% of black and African American applicants for mortgages. Again, those are tens of thousands of mortgages. So charges higher interest rates. If you can get a loan, you pay more for it. 3.34 for black borrowers versus 3.23 for white borrowers. And again, that's over a 30-year mortgage. So that's real money that you don't have to pay your bills, to invest, to use in the way that you see fit. Fewer refinancings, and this is a huge problem, as Mr. Crump so eloquently explained, during the last few years of almost 0%. I mean, the Federal Reserve was not charging anybody anything. You could get a historical rate, really save a lot of money every month when people really needed it. And so who knows who wasn't able to pay their bills because they couldn't get a refinance or to invest in their business or their children or their families.
Wow.
Or just do a little repairs, like Ms. Fanning said. Wow. So Wells Fargo approved only 33.7% of black Americans who were refinancing their applications versus 41% of white refi applications. 49.1% of whites. And if you got a refinance interest rate, again, black borrowers were charged 3.18%, while white borrowers were only charged 3.11%. You also had to pay higher costs of that same refinancing, which almost 2-to-1 were the fees for black borrowers versus white borrowers. And these are publicly available data. It doesn't take into account the people who never got there, the people who walked into their bank and were told, not you, who were treated with suspicion and disdain and walked out, the people who applied and submitted documents like Ms. Fanning 4 times only to have the application die. And why is this? It's due to company-wide discriminatory practices that federal civil rights laws allow us to challenge in court. And Wells Fargo isn't worried about a couple people, even the 4 terrific people who you've heard from today. But what we intend to do is these brave class representatives are coming forward on behalf of the people who can't. And so under these laws, Section 1981, which was passed right after the Civil War in order to get rid of the discrimination in contracts, this is what these laws are designed to do. And so what we're here for is, and what our clients are agreed to put their names on, to come forward, to be brave, and to open their hearts, is to achieve real injunctive relief, change that a court will oversee, and relief for all the people who've been damaged.
Thank you so much, Attorney Biss. I'll say this, as Attorney Scheer just reminded me, if Wells Fargo, as one of America's largest home lenders, if not the largest, had just extended the same opportunities to black customers as they did white customers, black people would have been able to start to close that wealth gap, close that disparity between black citizens' home ownership and white citizens' home ownership. But instead of making it better for black people, Wells Fargo engaging in discriminatory practices have made it worse for black people. And that's why we're here. And we'll answer your questions as we continue to fight. Yes, sir.
Attorney Crump, what mayors or cities have you met with, and what exactly are you asking them to do?
Well, at this time, we've met with several. We think it's probably appropriate for them to become public when they make the decision. But they have also applauded Mayor Adams, and they are collecting information to see how their cities have been impacted.
So you want them not to open new accounts, or do you want them to remove the accounts that they've got?
We want them to do whatever they think is appropriate for the inequities in their city dealing with the African American communities to be addressed. I think what Mayor Adams did was precedented in the fact that he said we can see discrimination and look the other way, or we can see discrimination and say we won't tolerate it. What we want mayors in places like Atlanta, places like Chicago, places like Houston, places like Richmond, Virginia, places like Jackson, Mississippi, places like Durham, North Carolina. What we want them to do is to tell their African American community, we stand with you against discrimination.
And what New York is doing is simply not opening new Wells Fargo accounts. They're not taking money out of it.
Right. They haven't went to divesting yet. They're saying we simply aren't going to do business with you anymore in the future. No new accounts until you address these inequities that are just obvious. I mean, a blind person can see these inequities.
And have you had any settlement discussions with Wells Fargo? Is there any chances it'll be settled?
Well, you know, the ball is in their court to do right. I think what Ms. Simmons and what Ms. Fanning, what those citizens were saying is, you know, you beat us down, but we're not going to let you beat us. And that's what we're saying. Wells Fargo, do right by these citizens. Do right by these black people who have been loyal I mean, you heard Miss Fanning, how long she's been a member, paid her mortgage every time. Miss Simmons did the same thing. Everybody, Mr. Henry, I mean, how long?
28 years.
28 years, and still a customer. And yet Wells Fargo continues to discriminate against her. There's nothing they can say to Mr. Henry to justify denying a loyal, high-performing, high credit score, appropriate income to debt ratio, other than what Mr. Simmons concluded himself. It's the color of my skin. What did repeat that thing you said, Attorney Briss? Well, you can't explain it. It's like 1 trillion to 1 that you can get these statistics, unless the obvious is they're discriminating against black people, and it's systematic. Hopefully I answered your question, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
How many in the class now?
Well, the class encompasses all, but I'll let the experts speak to that.
We don't know for certain because we don't have the data. So the next step of the lawsuit will be we will go into discovery and ask Wells Fargo for all of the records of why people were denied, seek to depose executives about the policies and practices, and really dig into all of the data and have a firm number on the class. But Wells Fargo services, I think they say 1 out of every 3 households. They're one of the top 3, I would say, for mortgages. I would estimate in the tens of thousands.
Yeah, all the black people who apply for home loans with Wells Fargo, that's the potential class. Yeah. Any other questions?
And people who paid predatory interest rates, higher servicing fees, all the entire litany of those practices.
We're continuing to get calls that are more just as astonishing as Ms. Simmons, Mr. Henry, and Ms. Fanning and Mr. Williams. I mean, they are astonishing calls. When you hear the stories about Ms. Simmons where they show up to institute a foreclosure even though everybody knew about the CARES Act. I mean,
and we have had many other people who, black borrowers, who had that same thing happen, who took advantage of a federal program designed to help people stay in their homes, designed to help people be able to subsist during a very, very difficult period for the entire country. I heard it coming out of your mouth. I've heard it coming out of others' mouths across the country who aren't in Georgia, don't know you, given the runaround during the process, and then all of a sudden they got foreclosure papers, which is terrifying. I mean, this isn't just the cost. You've heard from these folks. It's the mental anguish of not knowing if you have your home, keep your home. It's the shame, even though you know it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's something you've worked hard for.
It's like being falsely accused. Mm-hmm. You know, I hate to keep going back to these criminal justice analyses, but I think what Ms. Simmons said is appropriate. It's criminal what they're doing to black people.
And who are often treated as suspicious, as criminals, as where did you get your money from? I mean, that's not the practice per se, but that's a lot of the day-to-day experience of banking while black.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am.
How far back should potential claimant reach out? How far back can we go?
The 3 different laws, or 4 different laws, have different statute of limitations, but go back at least 4 years. And there's some law that suggests that as long as the practice has been going on, and that every time someone pays a new discriminatory, gets a new discriminatory mortgage statement, that's a new violation. So the potential breadth is very large.
So we're encouraging people to call us and let us know what their situation is. Don't assume that you're just out because, as Attorney Briss said, every time you pay that interest rate that was, put upon you, branded upon you based on discrimination, then we believe it's a new act of discrimination. Mr. Williams said it best, he challenged them. Why are you going to charge me a 3% higher interest rate? And I know some people might say, oh, well, 3% isn't that much, or 2% isn't that much. You have a $400,000 house over a 30-year fixed mortgage. Kind of do the arithmetic in your mind. How many thousands and thousands of dollars that 3% adds up to when a equally situated white citizen, same debt to income ratio, same credit score, gets to get it for 3 or 4% lower. And then when they kind of look at when you are getting a home in a black neighborhood, that shouldn't be a criteria. It should be, what is your home worth? What are your credit scores? What's your FICO scores? We want to build up our equity in our communities as well. Yes, sir.
Is there a contact number or a website
we easy to find. BenCrump.com. And I probably and
We're stolenfriedman.com, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you.
We're not as tacky as Mr. Crump, but.
Any other questions? If not, we thank you so much. We will keep you updated. It is really going to be very important what the shareholders vote on tomorrow. With all of these allegations of discrimination, are they going to put their head in the sand, or are they going to say, we need this racial equity study by independent evaluator to say, maybe we need to hear from somebody else. If we don't think we're doing that wrong, but everybody else in America thinks we're doing something wrong, if we had to pay out, what was it in the BHA, $175 million in 2011, in 2013 to the federal government to settle a case where they charge higher interest rates to African American and Latino borrowers, and then here we go, Ms. Simmons and certainly Mr. Henry, 10 years later, and people say, are you doing the same thing? So at some point, you need somebody else to look at your books and not just keep patting yourself on the back saying we're making progress, we're doing good. So this vote is going to be important tomorrow, and we're going to make our class available for follow-up questions if they don't do this racial equity study, because the reporter asked me, the Bloomberg reporter asked me, said, well, what is the relevance? I said, not only hearing their stories, but to hear what's going to happen 24 hours from now. Mm-hmm. Are they going to continue to put their head in the sand? So thank you all. Thank you to these families.
Spelling of your name.
Just want to get the spelling on your name.